Hello, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Today we're going to give 3 examples of how co-ops are worse from an executor's perspective. Oh boy. So, yeah, most New Yorkers know the deal with co-ops, or also known as cooperative apartments. They may be less expensive than condos most of the time, but they come with a lot of rules and headaches. So there's definitely a trade-off there. So we're going to give 3 world examples of some of those rules and headaches that you're paying for, essentially, from an executor's perspective.
So today we will discuss the last to unlock, quick to sue, and release of lien. Oh, fun topics for us.
Yeah. So, those little phrases are these are examples, recent examples actually, to show like just kind of co-ops can be very difficult. So just make sure you know what you're paying for. You know what you're getting. Okay. All right. So last to unlock. So everyone knows, the whole world knows that large swaths of our society have been locked up for public health reasons, let's call it.
Yes. Yes.
I have air quotes around that. So anyway, so as we slowly unlock, and I don't know about you, Janice, but New York is really slow about it.
Really slow, yes.
But we have noticed that co-ops are way slower than condos and again, single-family townhouses. And not only are they slower, as they do unlock, they impose way more rules. So what am I talking about? How does this apply to condos and co-ops? Let's talk about showings, because when you're trying to sell your condo or co-op from an estate, how are you going to show it if your co-op won't allow an open house or won't allow buyers to come in, right? So whether or not you agree or disagree with whether or not that's the right decision from a public health standpoint, everyone's got to agree that it's not having that option imposes all sorts of delays and costs and reduces your ability to sell. I mean, can we agree on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. If you can't see the place, but just in pictures,
I mean,
it's kind of tough.
If you have the choice between 2 places, the one you're actually allowed to see versus the one that you have to rely on a virtual.
That's an easy one for me. I would have to go in and, I know it sounds funny, but smell it, see it.
Yeah, smell. I heard is a good one.
I know, smell it, because you never know.
But it's not only your experience of being able to evaluate the property, but doesn't that tell you something as a prospective purchaser about
if I can't get into one and the restrictions are that tight, do you really want to buy there?
Bingo.
If your first step, you can't even make that step. Oh, I definitely agree.
And doesn't that set off some red flags? When I want to sell 5-10 years from now, what barriers are there going to be to my ability to sell? Yeah.
Yep. Especially because who knows what's going to happen if these rules will continue, and then you're kind of stuck, right?
Yep. So right now, some examples of some of the additional restrictions that co-ops are doing. Not just co-ops, some condos are doing it too, to be fair, but it's generally co-ops. There's there's like a stack of additional forms you need to fill out. Whether have you been anywhere in the past? The typical stuff. Making really narrow scheduling windows. Making it really hard to get in, even if they do allow showings. Rules limiting the number of prospective visits per unit. So if you're only allowed to show to 5 potential buyers per week, right? You better hope one of them is a legit buyer.
Absolutely. When you have an open house, you could have 20, 30, I don't know. You could have tons in that 1 hour span. And now you're down to 5 in a week. Ooh, that really,
the odds are not with you. All right. So quick to sue. We're talking about the next example of how co-ops are just not great for executors. All right. So when somebody dies, there's a natural lag between bills and payments. And what does that mean? Like if somebody dies on the first of the month and their rent is due by the 5th, there's no way in 4 days the estate's going to be set up and somebody's going to have access to the funds, right? That's just, do we all, get that?
Yeah, no.
And as a matter of fact, it can often be more than 1 month. It could be 2, 3, or even 4 months, just depending on how the how sticky the probate situation is. This is normal. And everyone who has ever dealt with a deceased person knows it. If you call, we have Verizon here in New York, or Con Ed.
Con Ed, yep.
Right? They know. Hey, no, actually, this person passed away, so just keep sending us the bill. We'll pay it when we have the estate set up. Oh, okay. So everyone knows. Everyone gets it, right? And very few of those entities will charge you a penalty or interest, because who wants to be that jerk company that's penalizing, a widow, right?
Right. In a process that normally takes this amount of time.
So I have an answer for that. Who is the jerk company that wants to penalize a widow? A co-op.
Yeah.
So co-ops are just generally sort of detached from reality. And yeah, they will not only be very aggressive in trying to collect their back maintenance, they will assess some pretty stiff penalties. There's no sort of grace. I mean, I've seen it. Again, there's always exceptions to every rule, but
sure,
more likely than not, co-ops will be hitting you every month with 50, 100, maybe even $200 in penalties. They're very aggressive, and they are way more likely to sue to start a lawsuit, saying that you owe us back maintenance, or that we want to foreclose on the co-op, within sometimes just a few months. I know it sounds like just a few months, but that's how long probate takes. If you listen to our podcast, probate takes, sometimes a year.
It's definitely not 4 days. No, it takes, a little while.
And this is all
every situation.
Yeah, it's all quite wasteful, because they're going to file a lawsuit against the estate. They're going to spend a couple $1,000 on their lawyer, and the estate's going to end up selling the property as it was going to, in the first place.
Right.
But now the estate has to pay the co-op's foreclosure attorney. So that's just like an additional penalty that doesn't even go to the co-op. It's just supporting a hungry lawyer somewhere.
Right. They could have waited just a month or maybe two, and
because that's
taken care of.
How things work when somebody has passed away. Yeah. So very, very quick to sue and very aggressive. That's the way of the co-op. Yeah? So the last example of how co-ops are just the worst.
This one's my favorite.
Well, this is a very recent example that we're living through. The release of lien. Okay. So when anyone passes away with any substantial assets, there is a potential for that the estate will owe estate tax, the death tax, if you're familiar with that. However, death tax does not apply unless your estate, the person who died, had assets worth more than $11 million, $11 million, repeat, at the federal level, or well over $5 million at the state level. That's like less than 1% of people.
Yes.
Very, very rare situation. We deal with high net worth individuals, but even, it's just not that common, right? So for that reason,
a pretty high threshold.
Yes. For that reason, when you're trying to sell any real estate, the buyer wants to know that there's no estate tax due, right? They want to make sure that later the IRS isn't going to say, "Hey, the person who passed away, from whom you bought that house, they actually never paid their estate tax, so we're going to put a lien on your house." That's what the buyer is worried about.
Right. Which is understandable.
Sure, I get it. But again, you need to have the estate has to have over $11 million for that to even become a concern. So if you're selling your $700,000 studio,
studio, one bedroom apartment,
right, it's just not that big of concern. So for that reality, based on that reality, most buyers and most title companies and most condo boards will take a simple affidavit from the seller, from the estate, saying, "Hey, my estate doesn't even come close to sniffing $11 million. So we're good, right? There's no even concern of an estate tax.
We're not even a drop in the $5 million bucket.
I wish.
Yeah. Right. I wish that was a problem. I can only hope that was my problem. Right.
So yeah, and then most condos or title companies or home buyers will be like, yeah, cool, makes sense. And we'll just take that affidavit or that form or even a small addition, a small rider to the title insurance policy.
Right.
There's all sorts of ways to just resolve for that. Not with co-ops. Co-ops want a clearance letter from the IRS saying that there's no estate tax due. That
Yeah.
the way, when I say it like that, it sounds like, oh yeah, what's the big deal? Do that. We've done
Sorry.
entire
Yeah, it's a big deal.
episodes on how brutal it is to get a response from the IRS.
Yes. It literally an entire episode. We probably could do an entire series on obtaining documents from the IRS right now.
So if you're trying to close, if you're trying to sell a piece of property during a lockdown when the market is not free flowing necessarily, and your co-op board is saying, "Oh yes, you can sell. We allow you to." By the way, you always need their permission, which is just always a thrill. We allow you to sell your property, but only after you get this letter from the IRS, which on a good day might take 2 to 3 months, but during a lockdown could take who knows how long. How many buyers are going to wait for that?
If you've told me it's now going to take anywhere from 2 months to 12 months.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go back to that first one that you talked about that let you in and was a little bit easier.
Yeah. So that's what we're dealing with. Co-ops are just kind of crazy, and this hurts them too, because their owners, or their existing residents see this, and they're like, oh wow, this is the nutty regime of rules we live under for our property, our homes. But that's how it is. New York is great. Co-ops are great.
Super fun. Right. But you know what? We can't make up this stuff. These are actually occurring as we speak, and it makes for some interesting cases.
So right now we're at the mercy of the speed of the bureaucracy. That's a fun position to be in.
It'd be interesting to report back to see how long it took for the IRS clearance, right? Was it closer to 2 months or closer to 12 months? And
I don't think it'll be 12 for this one, but it might be closer to 6. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what their backlog is. It'll be interesting.
Not so interesting for the clients and the family who's going through it. That sucks.
No, and you wish there was something else we could do, right? Have that magic button or magic phone number that could call and
No. We've offered every alternative possible solution to the co-op board.
Yeah.
Putting money in escrow, they're like, no, we need that piece of paper from the IRS.
The IRS,
which nobody else asks for. Just to be clear.
No, not at all. No, it'll be interesting, and I hope that. So still be able to come through and move forward with the sale. So
we'll figure it out because we're great.
Yeah, that's what we do. It just makes it interesting. But if you want to learn more about how this executor stuff works, check out Anthony's book, How to Hire an Executor, available on Amazon. It'll just give you a glimpse into what someone's going to have to deal with, right? In this type of situation, if they're helping with your estate.
This is also a good example of why you want a executor who's familiar with the customs of New York, because somebody not from New York might not realize coming in, like, oh yeah, I have to sell this apartment. No problem. Like, but it's a co-op.
Sure.
What does that mean?
Right.
Oh, you don't know.
Oh yeah. Now, and I wouldn't have realized that either until I started working in New York. I mean, that there were co-ops. What do you mean that somebody tells you can't sell your house? Yeah, you wouldn't have known if you aren't there and live it.
Yep. Well, we have clients who are learning it the hard way right now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, fingers crossed. And that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. All right. Hope these examples were useful. Let me know in the comments if we should keep going along with these case studies. Otherwise, thank you, Janice, and thank you everyone for listening. Take care.
Talk soon.